Hey, Mr. DJ.
So then, I sort of went to the piano, found the chords to it.
Hey, you want to form a band? I play guitar.
Writing songs is just trying to grab some of that power for yourself.
I've had no formal training in songwriting at all.
I remember writing that in the kitchen. I remember the actual process.
There's something so deeply moving about the song and so timeless.
Get out of the way of the music.
Mr. DJ.
Was the 1990s the greatest decade in music? I'd love to hear from you. Do you think back fondly to the 90s? Australian music was incredible in the 90s. There was the influence of grunge. There were shades of electronic music and hip-hop. It was the time where Aussie female artists really started to get into the charts. It's something I want to have a look at today with Antonino Tati. He's a music guru and editor of Cream magazine. And with us again now. Hello, Antonino.
Hey, Paul. How are you?
I'm fine. Looking forward to the opportunity of exploring this marvellous decade of music with you. It's the big one for Kylie, isn't it? Let's start with Kylie.
Well, yeah, I mean, basically, Australian music had a reputation, particularly in the 70s and 80s, of being very rock-heavy. It was very much a sort of garage band that typified Australian music. But then come the 90s, when you had this, splash of different genres, you also had a lot more presence of female artistry. And Kylie Minogue, of course, came out from the late 80s when she had sort of, poppy tunes bouncing about on the charts. But then in the 90s, she actually got quite credible and had some real raw instrumentation on albums like Impossible Princess. So I thought we'd kick off and hear a track from that record, basically.
Here we go.
Clever girl, think you are, but you think too much. Shut down, Turner, don't look that way anymore. Clever girl, think you know, but you don't know much. Try to make a move, go to a different door. You know it's all in your head. You better put that business to bed. By your bare hands of the sign you met with the monster in your mind. You did it again. You did it again. Won't you listen to me when I'm telling you it's no good for you? Clever girl, think you're right, but what's right from wrong? Little Miss Genius, you make it hard on yourself. Clever girl, you've got it all, but you're all messed up. Time now, turn around, move on to something else. You know it's all in your head. You better put that business to bed. What you see, nobody sees it. Only brings you to your knees. You did it again.
Kylie Minogue and Did It Again. Antonino Tati is with me. Kylie's kind of gone into a country phase now, Antonino, and she's touring again, coming to the Hunter mid next year. Do you think people will look back at the 90s as Kylie's, this is the big era for Kylie, or is she consistently evolving?
Well, she's a bit of a chameleon, as the best pop stars have proven in history. But if you go back to that record I referenced, Impossible Princess, where Did It Again came off, it actually opens with two very country-sounding songs. In fact, one of them's called Cowboy Styles. So Kylie has always had, I suppose, a bit of an affiliation, if not desire, to sort of break into country. Did you hear the rumour that she was going to, or wanting to do, a duet with Dolly Parton? I don't know if that's going to come about.
It'd be a brilliant thing if they did. I reckon they'd be fantastic together.
It would be. And Kylie can rock a cowboy hat like no other, I reckon. Yeah. But can I just say, you know that song we played, the video for that actually featured Kylie in 4 different guises. She looked like she was holding her own as, I think Spice Girls were very popular at that time in the early 90s. So she sort of had to compete with being a solo artist. And so what she did was she divvied up her own personality into 4 different looks, basically. She was angry Kylie, posh Kylie, baby Kylie, etc. So it was a clever thing. She sort of holds her own well in various eras so as to keep up with what's on point and what's on trend.
It's interesting. I mean, she is such a diminutive figure. She's tiny. And when you think of opera stars, when they walk onto the stage, they need to have a huge physical presence. When Kylie comes onto the stage, she is this tiny thing, but she can still manage to command the huge audiences that flock to see her.
She does. And she isn't the greatest vocalist, but I think a bit of smoke and mirrors and a bit of tweaking with the electronic devices, and Kylie ends up sounding pretty good on stage. Yeah.
Okay, where to next?
I think we go to an artist that can really pull it off live, vocally and aesthetically as well. That's Max Sharam. She is not a huge name in Australian music now, but back in the 90s, she was a bit of a seer in her day, where she, singer-songwriter as well as instrumentalist, and also a very intriguing artist in the way that she presented her music videos and her live stage acts. She, I suppose, incorporated performance art and also very, very cleverly cut arty videos. But I've picked a song called Coma from Max Sharam, which made it into Double J's 50 Best Songs of the 90s as well. And I like it because it's a very dark, edgy song. And what it helped do was sort of say, look, us Aussie musicians, female musicians, we don't have to sing, about Barbados with flowers in our hair and all of that we used to do in the 80s. We can actually talk about edgy stuff. So she's got lyrics in her songs about, smoking like an iron lung, etc., etc. And so despite it being dark tones in the lyrics, it's actually a really good groove as well. So I thought I'd pick Max Sharam's Coma.
I'm coming around. I'm coming around. Better pull your blinders down. Pull your blinders down.
Coma by Max Sharam. Antonino Tati is with me, music guru, editor of Cream magazine, 10 ABC Newcastle. And Antonino, unlike Kylie, Max didn't survive the 90s, did she?
No, I mean, she might be sort of doing a few commercial things or filmic type soundtracks now, but that's sort of behind the scenes. But no, I think it takes, I should say, a lot more than just talent to survive the music industry. And luckily Kylie had stylists, etc., whereas Max, through that independence that I talked about and that artistic integrity, unfortunately suffered from it. But at least we can look back and listen to some great music of hers.
When you say Kylie had stylists, what do you mean there?
Well, I suppose the 90s were very much the birth of the stylists and I suppose a certain contrivedness to music where things looked great and perfect on the surface and even sounded authentically, brilliant artistically. But there was a lot going on where things were tweaked electronically, where things were airbrushed stylistically. And even though Kylie is a show pony by nature and brilliant on stage, like you were saying, there is a lot that goes on behind it to help her come across like that, whereas Max kind of, did it on her own.
Interesting. Yeah. She was hugely successful, 8 nominations at the ARIA Awards in the middle of the 90s, Best Cover Art for the album we're talking about. So huge presence, but, you need more.
Yeah. And on the cover art, she's holding a dollhouse, Max Sharam, actually. And then when you go open up, even the CD version, it's kind of like it's one of those 3D type cut-out, die-cut type things. So she got creative so far as actually making your CD packaging and vinyl packaging more exciting too. So that was good to see.
Yeah. Deb Conway, huge name from that period of time.
Yeah, I think we can almost call Deborah Conway a veteran, couldn't we, really?
Yeah,
She's sort of been around since the 80s, has she? But Deborah, as you know, was a lead singer of a band called Do Re Mi, and they were around from the mid-80s, and pretty much, I suppose they injected a bit of political lyricism into Australian pop music. The music was always addictive and catchy and really good. But in the same way, she could get her sort of gender issues out there in a pop song, which was really clever to be able to get away with. And then, of course, she went solo in the 1990s, proving that, she didn't need the boys in the band. Yeah. She could do it on her own, and had an album which was cheekily titled Bitch Epic. Am I allowed to say that? Bitch Epic?
No,
ABC?
no.
Stitch Epic. Okay, so basically, it's a artistic sake, we could say it. But it did really well. It got her quite a few ARIA nominations, and it also reached top 20, that album. So I chose a single, well, actually it wasn't a single, but it was a second track off that album. And it's called "I'm Not Satisfied," which can I just say once again, it's an Aussie artist expressing dissatisfaction with the status quo and the way things are. So it's kind of preceding #MeToo and Time's Up and all of that. And so you can sort of see that in this song, Deborah's sounding like a bit of a ball breaker, but it's all good fun listening to it. So listen to the lyrics. I'm not satisfied.
There's nothing I need, nothing I want from you. Still, I'm not satisfied. I'm easy as gin, I'm as gentle as sleep, but I'm not satisfied. I'm hard like a ball, I'm tight as a wire, but I'm not satisfied. There's something I need, something I want from you. Still, I'm not satisfied.
Great Deborah Conway. And yes, legendary. She has. Well, how would you assess Deborah Conway's career, Antonino?
I think she's had a successful one so far as credibility goes. She's got the ARIA nominations and even some wins. She also has proven that, you know, she can stick it out and has the longevity on her side. She's not as prolific today, though. I mean, she does behind-the-scenes stuff. A lot of sort of, she was involved with the charity single, for example, where it was raising funds for breast cancer awareness, etc. And that was tied in with a lot of, well, she sort of sang along with a lot of contemporary female artists and as well as artists from 80s and 90s. You know, I think Kate Sobrano, Tina Arena. So she sort of still does a lot of the group and charitable gigs. And I think she does sort of intimate shows as well. But it'd be nice to see Deborah Conway and Do Re Mi as a band come back on one of those retro tours. I think it'd be lovely to see them on stage.
Okay. Let's move on to the Divinals, which were huge in the 90s.
Yeah, I mean, Chrissy Amphlett, the lead singer, pretty much was the champion and the forebearer of everything that needed to be seen and heard about the potential of Australian female music artistry. She probably was the first to show the world that we can rock it out they could rock it out as good as the guys could. So, you know, fronting the Divinals, she was almost like, you know, rocking as hard as AC/DC or the Angels, and still made a decent, attractive pop song out of it as well. Chrissy sort of went to number one with I Touch Myself over in the USA, and that was after the song was banned left, right and centre. It was, you know, stopped from playing on radio because of its, I think, let's say, connotations of masturbation, and all of that. So it was banned in the USA. And even to a point here in Australia, I think Rage was only allowed to play it between midnight and dawn. So it was,
Even Rage? Jeebus.
Yeah, Rage. After 12, they could play this song. And the thing is, she's in the video clip for I Touch Myself, she's in this nunnery, you know, a place of holiness, I suppose, but she's sort of like got her hands going down into a nether region. So she kind of was very risky, Chrissy Amphlett, and she showed that on stage and in her music videos. And I think it was a good move and a good example that other Australian artists sort of took on following Chrissy's wake. They kind of said, look, we don't have to be, like I said earlier, we don't have to sort of just be backup singers here. We can hold our own on stage and front a band and make great music out of it as well. So, yeah.
Let's hear it and bid you farewell simultaneously. Antonino, it's been really good exploring all these fantastic women in Australian music during the 1990s. We'll catch you again soon.
Thanks, Paul.
That's Antonino Tati, regular guest here with Jenny Marchant, who is normally in this position in your morning on ABC Newcastle. And Jenny will be back tomorrow. She's here today. She's working, doing some training. But let's go out, finish looking back at the 90s with I Touch Myself.
Anybody else, but about you. I touch myself. Oh, oh, oh. I don't want anybody else. When I think about you, I touch myself. Oh, I don't want anybody else. When I think about you, I touch myself. 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 I honestly do. I touch myself. I touch myself. I touch myself. I honestly do. I touch myself. I touch myself.
The Divinals and Chrissy Amphlett, who was an Australian singer. She died in 2013. ABC Newcastle, now it's 26 to 11, and got a few texts here. Deb Conway, the best show I've ever seen at Lizottes, and I've seen plenty, says Lindsay. Yeah, good to hear from you.